This is Mary Nipper. Thank you for joining my video on how to have a strong and stable back. So for this practice, we're going to do some cat and cow as well as some lunges. And this is to help stretch out the muscles of our legs, particularly our hip flexor muscles, as well as some of our hamstring muscles. Great, let's begin. So I'm just using a blanket under my knees for comfort. And I also recommend yoga blocks if you have them, and I'll show you in a minute how we're going to use those. So go ahead and come up into your tabletop position with your hands under your shoulders, your knees under your hips. We're going to begin just a few rounds of cat and cow. So as we inhale, coming into cow pose, lifting the sitting bones up, lifting the shoulders up, and looking up. Exhale, tucking the tailbone under, rounding the spine, releasing the head down towards the earth. And just take a moment to tune into your breathing now as we fluctuate between our cow pose and our cat pose. And particularly pay attention to your lower back, making sure that your lower back is comfortable. If anybody is experiencing back pain as they're doing this, then what you should do is you should just find a way that you can do it in a very gentle fashion where you come into your cat tuck position here, but you don't go to your full max. And the same thing, you can come into cow and you can just come back to a neutral position and just hold here before returning into cat tuck. So if anyone's having back pain, that's what I recommend. As we do this, we want to free our breath. We want to feel the breath and the energy moving up and down our spine. And this is a wonderful warm-up that we can do anytime that our back is feeling a little stiff or a little sore, or even if we've been sitting for a while and want to begin to mobilize some energy in our body. This is a really beneficial practice. And now we're going to go ahead and move into our lunges. So my yoga block is a big help for me in easily getting into my lunge pose. So using my 2 yoga blocks, it gives me space to easily get my right leg forward. Notice how my ankle is right, my knee is right over my ankle, I should say. Great. And notice how the back toes are pointing straight back towards the end of my mat, stretching out my ankle. So we're going to come into the first position now where we gently draw the hips forward towards our foot and towards our blocks. And as we do that, we want to be very mindful that we keep length in the lower spine here. And from this position, we're going to be stretching out the left hip flexor muscles. It's the leg that's back that is the one that we're stretching out those flexor muscles. So we can just stay here. It's very stable on the blocks. We want to also be mindful to take our sitting bones, especially our right sitting bone, down towards the earth. And as we do that, take the tailbone and the sitting bones down, it creates a lot more space for the low back. So if you're comfortable here, we can take our hands and place our hands on our knee and find stability and balance here. And then while keeping the right hand on the knee, we can go ahead and lift the left arm up and over our head, reaching for the sky. And as I do that, it creates even more stretch through the whole left side of my body, including my left hip flexor muscles. So to the extent that we're comfortable, we can gently draw the hips forward, but make sure that you always pay attention to your back and keep your back nice and comfortable. And now we're going to exhale as we return our hands back towards our blocks. To get a bit of a hamstring stretch from this position, we're going to go ahead and draw the hips back as we begin to straighten the front leg, the right leg, and then pick the right toes up off the ground, pointing them up towards the sky. Now, as soon as I pick my toes up, I begin to notice a stretching sensation on the bottom of my right leg, which is really beneficial. So you can keep your spine lengthened and long and keep your head reaching up towards the sky. But if you don't feel a stretch yet in your upper thigh here at the hamstrings, you can begin to just very slowly hinge from the hip crease with a long spine as you inch your way forward. And this is where the blocks are really good because they really help with stability here. If you don't have blocks, you can do the same thing. with taking your fingertips to the floor, but it's much more difficult to control how much stretch you're giving your leg. Okay, beautiful. Let's one more time go into our hip flexor stretch. So I'm going to go ahead now, move the blocks forward, very slowly begin to lengthen through my spine, drawing my hips forward, keeping that long spine. We want to take a moment here to kind of stabilize and just sense into our lower back. If everything feels comfortable still, we can take one hand at a time up onto our knee. And then if it's still comfortable, we can lift our left arm one more time up towards the sky, opening the heart, reaching, looking up with our eyes and feeling the energy flow all the way up our spine. Beautiful. And we're going to exhale now as we come out of the pose. So coming back to all fours and then just coming back to sit in a comfortable sitting position. Beautiful. And we're ready for the second side. So this time we're going to stretch our right hip flexor muscle. I'm going to come back to all fours and get my blocks ready. This time my left foot steps forward and I'm going to find that position with my knee over my ankle, coming forward, taking my hips forward and then drawing the sitting bones down towards the earth to create length in the low back. At this point, I can take my hands to my knees, untuck the back toes to stretch out that right ankle. And if my body still feels okay and my low back is feeling comfortable, I can lift my arm up over my head to find a beautiful stretch through the entire right side of my body. So reaching up with my fingertips, settling down with my hips. I feel like I'm rooting down through my lower body, rooting into my feet and my knees and my lower legs, and yet I'm ascending up towards the sky with my upper body as I create that beautiful length in my hip flexor muscles and in my back. And I'm going to get ready now to release that, taking my hands back to my blocks. I'm going to move my blocks back, begin to lift up and out of that stretch. And now I'm going to straighten my left leg, taking the left toes pointing up towards the sky and making sure that my spine is comfortable here as I begin to feel that lovely stretch in my hamstrings and my calf muscles. And then I can control my hip movement. I'm going to fold forward now, taking my long spine straight over my leg as I wait until I get into what feels to me, I can begin to really feel these muscles stretching out at the top of my thigh. Now, if you should feel any sensations right at the knee joint itself, any sense of discomfort, you should bend the knee and back off, because that means that the ligaments are getting stretched and we want to avoid that. Excellent. So one more time, we're going to rock forward, coming into our lunge and our deep lunge, taking the sitting bones down to the earth as I bring my hands on my knee. And then on the next inhale, lifting my right arm up towards the sky as I come into my deep hip flexor stretch. Continue to release into the stretch, using your breath to take it right into the places where you're feeling the sensation of stretching. Long, slow, deep breaths. And stay for about 30 seconds, that's long enough, or maybe a minute at the most. And we're going to slowly now begin to come down, taking our hands back to the block, taking our 2 feet back together, and returning to a comfortable sitting position of your choice. Beautiful. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining this practice to help stabilize and strengthen your low back.